When I look back at everything I've done, whether in sports, in public service, or in building something from scratch, there's one thing that always came first: the vision. Before anything became real, before there was a team, a plan, or even support, there was a vision that existed only in my mind. That's where everything begins. If your mind isn't strong enough to hold on to that vision, especially when the world calls it impossible, you give up long before you've even started. You see, most people wait for the conditions to be perfect. They want proof, comfort, guarantees, but real strength lies in the ability to imagine something bigger than your circumstances and to believe in it so fiercely that it pulls you forward even when nothing around you looks like success. I've been told no more times than I can count. I've been laughed at, ridiculed, underestimated, but none of it mattered because I had already seen where I was going. In my mind, it was already real. That's the first step to building a strong life. You must train your mind to focus on the vision, not the noise. When your mind is weak, it gets distracted by setbacks, criticism, and the fear of failure. But when your mind is strong, it becomes your greatest asset. It turns resistance into fuel. It turns isolation into focus. And it allows you to hold on to that picture of the future, even when you're surrounded by darkness. This doesn't mean that the road is easy. On the contrary, the stronger your vision, the harder the road often becomes. The truth is, most people give up, not because they're weak, but because their vision wasn't strong enough to keep them going. I remember times when nothing was working, when even the people closest to me doubted the direction. The temptation to quit was always there. But that's when your inner strength is most needed. That's when you remind yourself why you started. You hold that vision tighter than ever, not because it's easy to believe in, but because it's yours. No one else has to see it. No one else has to approve of it. If you wait for external validation, you'll be waiting forever. A strong mind isn't about shouting the loudest or looking the most confident. It's about quiet conviction. It's the ability to stand still in a storm and say, "This is where I'm going." It's the discipline to keep showing up every single day, no matter how small the steps, because you know those steps are building something greater. The world will try to define you by where you are right now, but you have to define yourself by where you're headed. That's the power of vision. That's what mental strength looks like. Not in your words, but in your persistence. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: when you don't let the outside world shape your belief in yourself, you become unstoppable. People will join you eventually. The results will come eventually. But the mind, your mind, is the origin of it all. Protect it, strengthen it, feed it the right thoughts. Don't let fear, doubt, or failure rent space in it for too long. Everything I've ever built began in silence, in solitude, in a place where only I could see it. That's where strong lives are born, in the quiet strength of an unwavering mind. Most people are afraid of failure. They treat it like something to avoid at all costs, as if failing means they weren't good enough or meant for something greater. But here's the truth: failure is part of the process. In fact, if you're not failing, you're not pushing hard enough. You're playing safe. And no one ever achieved anything meaningful by playing it safe. I've failed more times than I can count. Plans that fell apart, expectations that collapsed, moments where everything seemed like it was over. But each time, I chose not to let the failure define me. I chose to learn from it. And that choice to stand up again and take another step, that's what builds mental strength. That's what separates those who keep moving forward from those who stay stuck in the past. See, we're taught to see failure as an end, but it's never the end. It's a checkpoint, it's information, it's life showing you where you need to adjust, where you need to grow. The problem is, most people don't use failure that way. They let it break them. They let it convince them that they weren't good enough to begin with. But I've learned that you don't lose when you fail, you lose when you quit. You've got to reframe the way you look at setbacks. Every time something doesn't go the way you expected, you've been given an opportunity to sharpen yourself. You've been given a chance to develop resilience. That's the real gift of failure. It reveals your weaknesses and gives you the chance to turn them into strengths. Remember moments where it felt like the entire world was watching me fall. It's in those moments that you discover who you really are. Do you get bitter or do you get better? Do you shrink or do you rise? The strongest minds are not the ones that never fall. They're the ones that fall, learn, and come back stronger than before. They fail forward. They use failure as a staircase, not a wall. And I want you to understand something else. Failure hurts. It's painful. It's frustrating. There's no point pretending otherwise. But pain is not your enemy. Discomfort is not something to run from. If you can train your mind to sit with failure, to look at it honestly, to extract every lesson from it without letting it destroy your self-worth, you become unstoppable. Because you've learned how to take hits without losing direction. You can't become mentally strong if you're always trying to avoid struggle. Strength is built through pressure. Just like muscles grow when you push them beyond their comfort zone, your mind grows when you're tested, especially when things don't go your way. But you have to be willing to keep showing up, especially after a setback. Too many people let one failure turn into a pattern. They stop trying. They start playing small. They lower their standards. But I've found that every time I refused to quit, no matter how discouraged I felt, I eventually broke through. Not because I was the most talented or the most connected, but because I kept going. I kept learning. I failed forward. And that's the mindset I want you to build. Life will test you if you decide not to get up again. So fail, fall, miss the mark. Just don't stop. Don't let fear of failure trap you in a smaller life than the one you're capable of living. Because the strongest lives are built by those who never stop growing, even when they fell. People often ask me what the secret is. What's the one thing that made the biggest difference? And while there's no single answer, I can tell you this with complete certainty. Discipline has been the foundation of everything I've ever achieved. Not talent, not luck, discipline. Day in, day out, when no one's watching, when it's uncomfortable, when it's boring, that's when the real work happens. And that's where strength is built. You can have the biggest dreams, the most powerful vision, But if you don't have the discipline to back it up, you'll never see it through. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for your goals on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. And trust me, those days come more often than people think. The difference between those who make it and those who don't is how they respond on those days. When I was pushing myself, whether it was training, studying, planning, or building, there were moments I felt exhausted. Moments I questioned if it was worth it. But discipline kept me going. I had routines, I had structure. I wasn't waiting for inspiration to show up. I created the environment where progress was non-negotiable. That's how you build a strong mind. You don't just hope it shows up when you need it. You train it every single day through disciplined action. We live in a world that's constantly selling comfort. Quick fixes, shortcuts, instant results. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. A strong life isn't built in comfort. It's built in consistency, in repetition, in doing the hard thing over and over until it becomes part of who you are. Discipline sharpens your mind. It builds character. And over time, it creates the kind of inner strength that no setback can shake. I've seen many talented people burn out because they didn't have discipline, they had passion, but they didn't have structure. And without structure, passion fades. Your emotions can't be the only driver because emotions are unstable. One bad day can throw you off course if your life isn't anchored in something stronger. That anchor is discipline. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you of your purpose when your feelings get cloudy. Discipline also gives you freedom. Most people think it's the opposite. They think discipline is about restriction, but it's not. It's the key to freedom. When you're disciplined with your time, you gain control of your future. When you're disciplined with your habits, you protect your energy. When you're disciplined with your thoughts, you guard your peace. You stop being reactive. You stop being driven by other people's opinions. And you start creating your life on your terms. And it's not about being perfect. Discipline doesn't mean you never slip. It means you never stay down. It means you have the self-respect to realign quickly, to keep your standards high even when things feel messy or chaotic. That kind of mental discipline builds confidence. It builds trust in yourself. And when you trust yourself, you stop doubting your ability to handle what life throws at you. You don't have to be extreme. Just consistent, show up, do the work, stick to your values, train your mind like a muscle, feed it with focus, protect it from distractions, and watch how that inner strength begins to shape everything around you. Because a strong life isn't something you stumble into, it's something you build, one disciplined step at a time. There comes a point in life when you realize that no matter how strong your body is or how sharp your mind becomes, there's something deeper that truly sustains you, something that gives you clarity when things feel uncertain and peace when the world around you is chaotic. That strength doesn't come from winning or from being right. It comes from a spiritual connection, a sense that you're part of something bigger than just your own ambition. For a long time, I thought mental toughness was only about willpower, focus, and resilience. And yes, those things matter. But I began to notice that the strongest moments of my life didn't come from trying harder. They came from surrendering my ego, from letting go of the need to control every outcome, from trusting that there's a purpose in the process, even when I couldn't see it yet. Spiritual strength isn't about religion or rituals. It's about stillness. It's about being able to quiet the noise, look within, and align yourself with values that don't change even when everything else does. When you're deeply rooted in something greater than yourself, You stop reacting to every challenge with panic or fear. You begin to respond with perspective. You see that every setback is a lesson. Every delay has timing, and every difficulty has something to teach you. There were times when things around me were falling apart, plans failing, people turning away, pressure mounting. And yet, there was a calm inside me that wouldn't break. Not because I had all the answers, but because I had faith. Faith that if I stayed true to the path, if I kept doing what was right, if I didn't let bitterness take hold, I would come through stronger. And I did. We often spend so much time building our outer world, our careers, our reputations, our image. But the real battle is internal. If your inner world is weak, no amount of success can protect you. You'll always be chasing something to fill the gap. But when your inner world is strong, when your thoughts, your conscience, your intentions are aligned, there's a peace no one can take away from you. And this peace gives you strength. It's not loud or aggressive, it's steady, it's humble. It allows you to walk into uncertainty without fear. It helps you accept the things you can't change and stay focused on the things you can. It gives you patience when things are slow and courage when things are tough. And more than anything, it keeps you grounded. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing to prove yourself all the time. You do what you do because it's right, not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because it aligns with who you are becoming. I've come to believe that the real mark of strength is how you carry yourself when you're alone, when no one is clapping, when no one understands your choices, when you're doing what's right and still facing criticism. That's when your spirit is tested. And that's when your connection to something higher gives you the clarity to keep going, not with anger, but with grace. This isn't something that happens overnight. You grow into it. You start with small acts, being honest when it's hard, forgiving when it's easier to resent, staying kind even when you're hurting, and slowly you build spiritual muscle. You develop a resilience that isn't loud but powerful, a presence that isn't forceful but unshakable. Because in the end, the strongest mind is one that's anchored not just in logic or discipline, but in a deep, quiet trust. Trust that you're exactly where you need to be, that every moment is shaping you, and that strength is not always about force, it's about alignment. There's a point in your journey when you realize that real fulfillment doesn't come from applause or recognition. It doesn't come from the titles or the headlines. Those things are temporary. What stays with you, the thing that gives your life true meaning, is the impact you have on others. It's the difference you make when no one's watching. And that only happens when you start living beyond your ego and start serving something greater than yourself. I didn't understand this fully in the beginning. Like many people, I was driven by ambition, by the desire to prove myself, to win, to achieve. And while that hunger pushed me forward, it wasn't enough to sustain me. Because after every success, there was still an emptiness, a question, now what? It wasn't until I started shifting my focus from self to service that I began to feel truly grounded. When your actions are driven by purpose, not just pride, your life takes on a different end. You stop chasing significance and start creating it. Service requires humility. And humility isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's understanding that your success isn't just for you, it's a responsibility. It's fuel that you're meant to use to uplift others. That's the point where your life moves from being successful to being significant. Because it's not just about how high you climb, but how many people you bring with you. But here's the thing, serving others doesn't always come with rewards. In fact, sometimes it costs you. You'll give more than you get. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be questioned for your intentions. And still, you choose to serve. Because you're not doing it for approval. You're doing it because you know it's right. And when your values are stronger than your ego, that's when your mind is truly strong. That's when you stop reacting and start leading. Not from a place of pride, but from a place of purpose. You begin to understand that true power isn't in control, it's in contribution. When you use your voice to speak for those who can't, when you use your strength to protect those who are vulnerable, when you give your time, your energy, your resources to causes that matter, there's a different kind of strength that grows inside you. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's solid. It's real. It holds you steady when everything else is uncertain. And service doesn't have to be something grand. It's in the small, consistent choices. It's in how you treat people. It's in how you carry yourself. It's in whether you lift others up or push them down. Whether you choose to be a source of light in a room or just another shadow. Every single day, you're making that choice. And over time, those choices build a legacy. Your legacy isn't what people say about you when you're gone. It's what people feel because you were here. It's the changed lives, the inspired hearts, the people who got back up because you gave them hope. That's the kind of impact that outlasts everything else. So don't get lost chasing recognition. Build something that matters. Use your strengths, your experiences, even your pain to serve a bigger purpose. That's how you build a strong life. That's how your mind stays clear, your path stays firm, and your journey stays meaningful. Because in the end, what you give will always matter more than what you take. When you've been through enough battles, when you've faced enough rejection, setbacks, and hardship, you start to understand something most people miss. Everything that truly matters, every breakthrough, every deep connection, every moment of growth comes from within. The real journey is always inward. That's where the battles are won first, before they ever show up in the outside world. And that's why knowing yourself is one of the most powerful things you can ever do. We live in a world that's constantly pulling us in 100 directions. Social media, opinions, expectations, comparisons, they're everywhere. And if you're not grounded in who you are, you'll get swept away by all of it. You'll start living someone else's dream, chasing things you don't even care about, trying to impress people you don't even respect. That's how you end up lost. Not because you're weak, but because you never pause to ask, who am I? Really? What do I believe in? What kind of life do I actually want? The strongest minds are not built on noise, they're built in silence. You have to spend time alone. You have to sit with your thoughts, your fears, your doubts, and your truths. It's not always easy. Sometimes what you find inside yourself isn't what you were hoping to see. But if you're brave enough to face it, to accept it, and to grow from it, that's where true strength begins. You can't control the world. You can't predict every challenge or change what people think about you. But you can control what's happening inside. You can shape your mindset. You can choose your attitude. And you can decide every single day to live in alignment with your values. That's what it means to have a strong mind. Not being perfect, not being fearless, but being rooted in truth. Knowing what matters to you and living like it matters. And the truth is, most people never do this work. They're afraid of what they'll find if they go inward. So they stay distracted. They keep moving fast, hoping the noise will drown out the questions. But deep down, they know something's missing. Because strength isn't about how fast you move. It's about how deeply you're connected to your purpose. And that only happens when you take the time to know yourself. When you do that inner work, something powerful starts to happen. You stop needing validation. You stop trying to fit in. You start standing tall in your own skin. And the world begins to respond differently to you, not because you're louder or flashier, but because you're real. And people feel that, people follow that. But more importantly, you start to trust yourself. You become your own anchor. And in a world full of storms, that's everything. The path to a strong life is not found by looking outward. It's built by turning inward and doing the hard, honest work of self-reflection. Asking yourself, what are my values? What am I willing to stand for, even if I stand alone? What's driving my decisions, fear or purpose? When your answers come from a place of honesty, not ego, that's when clarity arrives. That's when the confusion clears and your steps become deliberate. You have to protect that inner space, guard it, nurture it, feed it with truth, not noise. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow, not just people who make you feel comfortable. Read things that expand your thinking. Reflect on your choices. Stay humble enough to learn, but confident enough to walk your own path. And no matter what happens around you, no matter who doubts you, who leaves you, who misunderstands you, if your foundation is strong within, nothing can break you. Because the most unshakable strength comes not from dominating the world, but from mastering yourself. So, when we talk about building a strong life, we're not talking about a life without struggle. We're talking about a life that can endure it. A life grounded in purpose, driven by discipline, fueled by service, and strengthened by inner clarity. The world will test you. It will push against your values, challenge your patience, and tempt you to compromise. But if your mind is strong, if your spirit is anchored, then nothing can shake the foundation you've built. Because in the end, your real power doesn't come from what you have, but from who you are when everything else is stripped away. That's where true strength lives. And that's the kind of life worth fighting for.